Okay, Johnny gets on the bus with this vest, and we know how big Johnny is. First day, cam wrap is a little bit loose, so we can rotate it, get Johnny seated, get him hooked in, rotate it so they're tight, winch it down. Then now your cam wrap is adjusted to where it needs to be, and Johnny's secure. So we had a school. Trying to remember who it is. I don't want to offend anybody. It wasn't you guys. I just didn't know it was one of your neighbors. I don't remember who it was. It was one of your neighbors. So I won't say any names. I just remember who it was. I get pictures. They have a child that is in a vest, like this, and is standing up during the ride. I laughed out loud. I'm sorry, I did. I was like, okay, well, I can tell you right now what the problem is. See if you fix it. But they tried to fix it themselves. So, rather than do it correctly, they decided that they would change the way they installed it. So, the cam wrap system wraps around the seat back, and then you've got the vest. And like this particular vest, the top hooks clip in here, right? They clip in there. So they took, it was a different vest. It was the Bessie, I think. It must have been a Bessie, because it had these B-rings at the top. And they took, just happened to be a track seating bus that was a wheelchair bus. So they took a Q-straight Sherlock wheelchair securement that goes on the floor, clipped it in above, and hooked it into the hook. Instead of the child the child is now being held in by the vest, except for one hook, which is used on a Bessie, on a Q-string wheelchair securement hook. It doesn't rotate now. So,
yeah, it's probably a good thing you didn't name names.
I said, okay. So, I really wanted to use those photos for training, but I talked myself out of it because it was so outrageous. And I've actually talked to Trish with Q-Straight, and I've talked to some of my other CPSTs about it, and we all just like scratch our heads. It's like, you can't make this stuff up. But the bottom line is that if that cam wrap is tightened down against that back seat, that seat back, as tight as it can, it's denting that seat, that will not rotate. There's no way it'll rotate. And can you imagine, the child is sitting, and the hooks are down in the seat bight, where they're supposed to be. How can a child get his feet underneath itself to stand up? They have to push up somehow, and that means that seat is not. And I said, you just need my class. I mean, just take the cam wrap, adjust it so the clips are way down in the seat bight, and then winch that thing down tight. He won't be able to stand up, I guarantee it. And the manufacturers, I mean, I talked to both the people from Easy On and at Bessie at TSD and told them this story. Oh, they don't have the cam wrap tightened up. Yeah. But yeah, it's like, whatever. Why? I don't know, people, you just can't make this stuff up. Can you put 3 on the seat? Yes, you can. And this picture isn't a good example because guess what? Can you find the problem in that seat, in that picture? The one on the far right, you guys is right, it rolls just off. So, what's wrong with this picture? Right? Yeah. Stay away from the edges. You've got to be on the flat surface. And those are really distinct edges. You notice these IMMI seats don't curve quite as fast as what they used to. Is everybody doing okay? Anybody need a break or anything? We'll keep going here. If you need a break, let me know. No donuts, no coffee, we're going. Okay, so back to the actual child restraint systems. Once again, we talked about this already. The Star seats have the slider, and Bessie and CE White have slots. So you got to make sure those are in the right spot. Keep them as low as you can. Just make sure they don't go below the shoulder level. Then the chest clip, talked about it a little bit. So especially the first time this child gets on the bus, you're going to want to pull all that slack out. Get it as long as you can possibly get it. Put the child in the seat and then start adjusting so you can get it to where it needs to be. I had one yesterday, the guy was like, oh, I got a little girl on my route, and they got A's. He was an A. He goes, I make the driver for this. Why? She's a girl. Okay, so you use the back of your hand. Always be respectful of these children's space. Always use the back of your hand when you put your hands near or on that child. Always use the back of your hand. So always touch the belt and not the child. Does that make sense? So your hand is rubs up against, we get that, you have to. But use the back of your hand and only grab the belt system. Booster seats are not allowed on school buses, period. So if you look at this and people are like, that looks like a car seat to me. Well, this is a convertible seat. It used to have a 5-point system in it. You can see the slots in there, but they turned it into a booster seat. So booster seat, true definition of booster seat, does not have a 5-point system in it. It is just something that raises the kid's butt off the seat a little higher. Perfect in automobiles where you don't have an adjustment for the shoulder harness, especially in the low back seats. Some of them do now, but most of them don't. So you put a booster seat to get the seat up so that the shoulder harness comes across the collarbone. No need for that in a school bus because, look at this. That kid has to be pretty doggone small for that not to work. And then they have to be pretty doggone tall for that not to work. So, yeah, no reason for booster seats in a school bus. None. So don't ever do it. Forward-facing integrated seats. These, most of these you can read the manufacturer's information here. Most of them run from 25 to 65 pounds, just like some of the other seats do. Basically, you've got a 5-point system built right into your bus seat. Have you got a bunch of those? Aren't they cool? God, they're lifesavers. Like I said before, you don't have to worry about it. It's not a cam wrap system, so you don't have to worry about leaving the occupants behind it unrestrained. So,
Does them seats that are built in, do they expire too or not?
no.
No, they don't.
No. Read your owner's manual. It's just like anything else, like seat belts in your car or anything else. You look for fraying,
Okay.
look for cuts, things like that. So you just have to do it with your inspection, make sure that they are being maintained well. Now, the trick to these bad boys, the ones we have up here today, and as you get up here and play with it, you'll be fine. You stick your finger in there, I don't know if you guys can see what I'm doing. You go clear up into that seat. There's a little metal ratchet, and you have to hit it to release the belt. That's how you get. And so once it's back in place, you can move it, make it tighter, but you can't make it looser. So you've got to reach up in there. And you just got to.
So is the back of that seat constructed differently than the back of
Yes, ma'am.
ones that's not?
Yes.
And so it still has no effect on the person behind it as far as compartmentalization?
Right, and that's why I say that seat is designed to take a second hit if it needs to.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Because it's built with seat
Specs are
belts in
built
it.
differently,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it's built with a child restraint system in it and seat belts in it. So this seat back has got, I don't know, it's not gonna look like that picture when it gets hit, because it's not gonna bend like that.
Okay.
Those are pretty stiff. But yeah, luckily there's a little bit of padding, so, yeah. And I actually had that question come up shortly after I got this class, and we didn't talk about it in the class, and so I had to actually call the engineer for the seat and ask him that question, and he said, yes, you're good. Like I said, make sure you ensure the straps and harness flat, presented, twisted, not folded. When you go to store these, they become kind of pain in sometimes, but there's enough room for them to fit in there so people can sit in. Okay. What did I do? What did I hit? Huh? Did I hit the home button? So, I think we're done anyway. Pretty close. Should have just done the slide on. Would have been easier. Forgot how big this program is. Any questions so far? Anything you want to talk about? That's a picture of one with belts in it, no big deal.
The restraint you have on the end there that uses the seat belt from the bus, how does that work with the shoulder belt?
It doesn't.
Okay, so
Right,
it's got a
so
lap belt.
it's there, but the problem is you've got, and I wish I had a better picture of it. These are not very popular, so I don't talk about them much. But there's a loop that you run the seatbelt through.
Did you say buses aren't sold with lap belt only?
Correct. So this actually can be used in an automobile as well, this particular one. But most of them can. If you've got lap belts only on an older bus or the front rows or whatever, it works really well. But you can use, because as you go through there, it will still work. It's just, it's going to be awkward.
Yeah, okay.
I'd like to see somebody use it sometime. The only time we see it is when we do the class, and I've never seen it out in the real world being used. And the ones we use only has a lap belt. So I don't know what it looks like with those lap and shoulder. Good question.
I just started a preschool route and we've got some little bitty ones, but they're not requiring us to put them in the seats because we don't have the built-in seats.
Right. How much do they weigh?
They're little. I'm not sure for
Yeah.
sure, but they are little. I've
See,
got
anything
one.
less than 25 pounds, you can't put in one of these seats anyway. You're going to have to use a regular car seat.
Well, no, they're having us put them in the seat belts.
They are putting in the seat belts without a seat?
Yes,
Without a
this little-
5-point system?
No, yes, then
Where's the shoulder harness coming? Is it coming across their neck?
well, we do have
Well,
the adjusters
if
like
you have those
that.
adjusters, you can get all that, yeah. I mean, it's
But-
fine, it's better than nothing.
We have a little boy that he climbed completely out of the seat belt.
Yeah. Well,
And across
that's-
the seat, but
that's
then
part
when
of
it
the
was
problem.
brought up here, they told us that, well, there's no restraints, so we can't give you one.
Okay.
On his plan thing or whatever,
On his IEP?
yeah, it says, oh, well, it doesn't say that he needs restraints, so you'll just have to sit with him. I'm like, but he's crawling completely out, he's trying to unbuckle,
Well, and here's the issue, and.
and there's
Kathy,
other
you
little
correct me if I'm
bitty
wrong,
ones.
But when you're transporting this many preschooler kids or young children, it becomes truly a financial burden to buy all these types of seats.
Right.
You know, it's a lot. And what's nice about it, these do, like I said, you can put a pretty small child in a regular 3-point belt. It's great, but it's not the safest way for them to be transported. We want them in 5-point harnesses. But to buy that many 5-point harnesses becomes ridiculous.
I know
think our
that,
biggest kicker is we have parents that fight it, that don't wanna have to put their kids in the. So you say put them all in there, so when we start making those calls, parents are like, I'm not putting my kid in, why do I have to put my kid in one of those?
Are you talking about the vests?
Yes.
Yeah.
oh, I wasn't talking about that.
If you're just talking about a star seat, if you've got belts on this school bus, right?
Yes,
But you don't have integrated seats in the entire bus, is what you're saying.
no.
You don't have
and-
this type of seat.
No, and we,
And
it
so
just
you've
really
got,
concerns me
you've got
because,
little ones
yeah, we have like little ones.
that are sitting with just a seat belt,
Yes,
and they're getting out of it. Well,
Yes.
they're going to.
It's a lap belt or it's a shoulder belt? too?
shoulder belt and lap belt.
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
you have a para? You should have a
I'm the
para,
para.
right?
So you have to sit with that child and.
I have to sit with the child
Yeah.
because he's constantly moving around and he climbed completely out of the seatbelt and across the
And,
seat.
and, you know, and you may not solve the problem with a 5-point system. You know, if you went to put the child in one of these integrated seats or whatever, you may not solve that problem. And by the way, you can put a cam wrap, you can put a star, if you don't have integrated seats and you've got the seatbelt system,
Right.
you can put a cam wrap system on these seats.
Right, but they said we can't even do that.
Well, you don't have them, evidently.
Yeah.
That's what it sounded like you said.
No,
So-
we don't even have to wear the ones like that over there either.
Yeah.
That, to
Yeah.
put,
So the answer in your situation would be to get like one of these
right,
regular
but
5-point
there's,
systems.
right.
And there's no guarantee that child's not gonna get out of that system either.
right.
So,
But they told us we couldn't even do that.
who told you that?
Actually,
If it's not in their IEP,
yeah.
we can't put it in there
Oh, sure you
without the parent's consent.
can. No. It has to do with safely transporting the child. So when you get into those ages and those weights,
I
the
will.
best practice is for anybody that size and weight to be in a 5-point system. Okay, that's the best practice. So if you have to address it with the IEP team, that's fine, but you just say, no, all of our kids that are this size make any difference what the IEP says. They're all being connected with a 5-point system.
These kids
They're being
that,
protected by a 5-point system.
these kids that I'm working with, their feet barely come past the end of the seat, the
Right.
bus seat.
Yeah, and that's what, if there was no seat belts at all, then we're running into some real dangerous territory there. Because best practice is you've got to be able to sit. So for compartmentalization to work, you have to be able to sit upright, hold yourself upright, and your feet need to be able to dangle off the front of the seat.
And they do
And
not
that's
at
the
all.
that's the big kicker. So that's why anything less than that, we say it would have been a child seat. So
Yeah.
in some kind of child seat.
And-
So you can put those star seats on there and just make sure everybody has them. Then the IEP becomes not part of the issue.
Right, well, we've
So
got.
I'm not sure what your IEP team's telling you, but we need to check with Bert because if they're giving you bad information like that, that's wrong.
Okay.
Because the best practice for transporting students of that size is for them to all be in a child restraint
Like-
system.
But can't you?
And if you're saying the IEP says they gotta be in a regular seatbelt, well,
I've already-
now we've got an issue with the safety of the children.
I've been taking a lot of crap, I mean, a lot of big pushback, but, if we've got an individual, so it's gonna have to be one-on-one.
Yeah.
Because, yeah,
Yeah, and so
we'll
then,
work on that.
yeah, you're gonna have to work on that too because once you go into that one-on-one situation,
I know.
let's see, we can't hire bus drivers, we can't hire paras, and now we got IEPs saying we've gotta have one-on-one attention. There's a problem. It's like writing in the IEP, door-to-door service.
Yeah.
Oh, don't ever let your IEP team do that. We had a school that literally had an apartment complex, that the child lived on the 3rd floor. Because the IEP said door-to-door, the driver had to park the bus, go up 3 flights of stairs, and knock on the front door to get the child. Because the IEP said door-to-door. Don't ever put that in with the IEP. Oh my God. Oh, evacuations, good grief, sorry, missed the whole section here. Talk about evacuation, real quick. So, you know about the regular evacuation drills, right? You guys are all doing evacuation drills. Are you doing rear door? Please tell me you do rear door. Thank you so much. We've got some school districts out there that don't, and we got some school districts out there that now have done a really, really silly thing. I was gonna say dumb thing. A really silly thing, and they've actually written it into their policy that they will no longer do rear door evacuations.
Well, to
So
brag
now,
on Maze, we
When the
do
bus
both.
catches on fire and the kids can't get out because they don't know how to get out the back door, then guess who's gonna get sued? And guess how many zeros are gonna be on that check? A lot. So, one thing, if you say, kind of an unwritten thing that we really don't like to do because we're afraid the kids are gonna get hurt, it's a bad idea, don't ever do it. But if you do have that writing, good grief, what are you gonna say?
I said to brag on Maze, we've done both.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Front.
Yeah, and I knew you guys did, I threw that out there. But, you know, the older students need to get out and help the younger kids out, all that stuff. So, real quick story, oh, we're good. Real quick story, we had a school district in down southeast Kansas that, young child, they did the whole evacuation drill speech. This is what we're gonna do, right? Remember, you sit on the floor, scoot out, perfect instructions, everybody's doing it. One little girl who's very athletic, fun and bubbly, you know how those kids are, right? She decides she's gonna be super, she just jumps out. That's no problem, because she's not hurt, there's no problem with it because she's very athletic and very bubbly and energetic. But she's getting scolded by the driver and the para that was helping. So the special needs, I mean, she's a big girl. She's probably 300 pounds. Not in shape at all, not in good condition. Sees her do this. They're scolding the other students so they don't see her, and she jumps. Compound fracture. Had to have surgery. So I get a call from the superintendent saying, your damn evacuation drills are going away. And I go, no, they're not. I said, that's in state law. You cannot not do those. He goes, well, we're never doing rear door evacuations anymore. Okay, here we go. I said, number one, sir, with all due respect, you need to change your language. Because now you are blaming the drill. You're blaming the system for a student's error. Put the blame where it belongs. The student screwed up. You're going to pay a lot less money if you change the way you're talking right now. Stop blaming the situation and blame the child. The child messed up. They were all given good instructions on how to do evacuations, right? Don't blame the problem, blame the system. I don't know if they're going to continue to do back door, but he changed his attitude pretty quick. Because, pardon me, you know, ask your lawyer, is this a good idea? As soon as the child gets hurt, to now stop doing them? The child screwed up. The system didn't screw up. Your people didn't screw up. Just that they turned their attention just briefly because they had to address a problem. So, and then like I said, we've got a district out there that has it in writing. It's a very large district that has it in writing that they won't do rear door. Bad idea. But anyway, safest way to get these kids out of this bus is through that rear door. And they have to sit down, push themselves out, and then they get help from the older kids, right? So when you're making your planning, so anytime you've got something different, child restraints, wheelchairs, all those things, it changes your evacuation plan, right? You've got to think through what it's going to be like to evacuate that bus. Now, 5-point harness systems, 5-point child restraint systems. You've got buses that have multiple of those on there, right? Have a bunch of them. So where is the 60-pound kid sitting versus the 30-pound child? Do you think about that? Or you have child restraint systems on the emergency exit window?
No.
You think about that? What if I can't get out? I got kids that can't get out the window because there's a child seat there. Right? So think about that, where you're putting them. How easy is it to get that child out of the child restraint system? So this is one of the biggest wives' tales that are out there. So actually, school district yesterday told me that their lawyer told them that they couldn't use seatbelts on the school bus because they wouldn't be able to evacuate them from the school bus. Okay, well, somebody has absolutely no training in anything to do with school buses or seatbelts, period. So, anyway, it's a big wives' tale. What's your biggest problem you have, especially with special needs kids, with even the 5-point system? Is keeping them in it. It's not getting them out. They can get themselves out of those seats. They're very good at it. It's like, why do you think this would be a problem in an evacuation situation? So, the other thing is that you're driving the safest form of land transportation in the world. So in a crash, the amount of damage that's done to that passenger compartment of that bus is minimal to nothing. In most cases. The biggest reason you're getting them out is because the things catch on fire. You've got to get them out. You've got to get them out fast. Train them. Once again, I'm going to bring up Jennifer. Jennifer Lawrenson. Love her to death. She's special needs / Head Start out of Salina. That's all she transports, Head Start. So they all have to be in child restraint systems, every one of them. She's got like 4 buses through the entire bus. She said, we did evacuation. We were talking just about this. And she said, we had an evacuation drill the other day, and the longest it took, we had one bus that took 58 seconds to get them out. You train them. You said to the kids, okay, time to get out of the bus. Let's go. They all undo their own belts and they go. It's just the way it is. It's simple. The biggest problem you have is keeping them from clogging up the aisles. You know, because they all want to go at once. So once you train them not to do that, it works great. Think about the infant seats. You got any rear facing? You got some drivers that have little ones? Some rear facing? So think about those in an emergency evacuation because they become tricky. Because now your bus driver may be the parent also, and we need to get that child off because the bus is on fire. So what do? Do we reach down and hit the button, take them and put them on our shoulder to take them out? Or are we hitting the button for the seat belt and taking the carrier? Just think about carrying that carrier down the aisle like this.
Yeah.
How long is your arm gonna last? Is it gonna make it clear to the back of the bus? If it's a short bus, probably, but if it's a long bus, maybe not. So think about that. So those are the kinds of things you need to think about when you're planning your evacuation stuff. What about cutting? We got seatbelt cutters. Let's cut everything. It's easy, right? What do you think's easier? Cutting a belt or pushing a button? Oh man, I could talk about this stuff forever. I love this stuff. I'm gonna tell you a little story. There's a group of people, I don't know if you've seen them before, they do a lot of YouTube videos. They go out and find cars that have been in the water for a long time. They're dive people. And so they find loved ones that have been missing forever and ever, and you know, it's just, they do a great service. Well, they've kind of gone out of their realm of what they should be doing, and so now they're doing training videos. And so they said every car should have a seatbelt cutter and a punch for the window. I believe that's true. I've got a seatbelt cutter and a punch in all my cars. So they do this little demonstration, and the diver, of course, he's dressed for, you know, he'll be able to dive if this doesn't work. And they drive the car off into the lake, and he grabs his punch, breaks out the window, and he grabs his seatbelt cutter and cuts his seatbelt. Why? You just wasted like 3 or 4 seconds. So I'm in the comments going, why would you cut that seatbelt? It's a perfectly good seatbelt. Just push the button. You know what I got as a response from them? What button? Okay, these people should not be making training videos. Sorry. Anyway, so the button almost always works. 3,000 pounds of pressure, and it'll still work. It'll work just like it does if you're sitting still. Somebody hanging upside down, be careful. You push the button, you gotta catch it, right? So don't tell your kids, hey, let's get out of the bus. Wait a minute, don't push the button. I'll help you. So, yeah, so hanging upside down, not a good thing. But they still work. That's the thing. People don't think they work. They still work. And I've literally told fire departments responding to a crash, they're in there like trying to cut people out. And it's like, have you tried the button? It probably works.
Did they go one button?
I literally they had the jaws out. We're gonna pop a door. And I said, did you unlock it? Reached in, window was broke. Reached in and unlocked it and opened the door. They got the jaws drug out. So, the bottom line, I'm telling you these stories because you need to think through scenario-based training is the best training you're gonna ever get. Now, we can't do all these scenarios. So your brain thinking through different scenarios. If this happens, what am I going to do? If this happens, what am I going to do? And it snowballs, right? And if you want, you can sit around in a safety meeting and do what we call tabletops. And somebody that's creative can come up with a crisis and throw it out and say, no wrong answers in this room, tell us what you do. And it's amazing how the information flows. It's good training. Physical capabilities of the driver and the attendant. You have problems there? You're going to be able to, wheelchairs are a perfect example. You've got a 250-pound kid in a wheelchair. You need to get him out. The bus is on fire. Do you have a drag blanket? If you got a drag blanket, is the driver capable of getting the student out of that chair onto the drag blanket and dragging them out of the bus? You got to think about it. That's the way it should happen. Do you guys do evacuation drills with your special needs kids, your wheelchair kids?
Yes.
Do you actually remove them from the chairs ever?
We do a simulation.
That's what I recommend most of the time. But I've had school districts that say, oh no, Johnny loves the evacuation drills. Johnny wants us to drag him down. I said, please tell me you're telling the parents before you do this that you're doing this, because my luck, see, I'd be dragging him down the aisle or whatever, and he'd smack his arm or something on the seat, and he'd go home with a big bruise, and they'd be like, what happened to your arm? He's like, oh, I got I got drug out of the bus today. Oh, Lord. So, yeah, so anyway, yeah, that's what I recommend is the mannequins or the dummies or whatever, and practice it, but you need to go through it and scenario-wise, tell them what you're doing. In evacuation, all these other kids are going out this way. I will actually take you out of your chair and drag you. So Especially if, even nonverbal kids, they need to know what's happening, they understand, so.
Especially nonverbal kids.
Huh?
Especially nonverbal kids.
They get to, sorry, hang on, I've got a sinus issue going on crazy. They get neglected so much as far as what information they get, because people think because they don't talk, I don't need to talk to them. It is so sad, so sad. Okay.
Sir,
Mm.
I have my two youngest sons are
Yes.
adopted and both have disabilities. One has autism and one has cerebral palsy.
Uh-huh.
I've had them since birth.
Right.
They're now adults. You can't imagine the fights I had and the
Oh.
problems I had with them to be
In
trained
school?
in school and to get through those things.
Yeah.
And
It's people like you that advocate for your
Yeah.
student that gets things changed, gets things done.
But
A lot of times. So many times you run into that brick wall, and I get that, but, I'm sorry you've had to go through that. I know a lot of parents that have students with disabilities, and, the ones that stand up and say something needs to change, or it's how change happens, so. Keep after it, appreciate you. Behavioral concerns, right? Anytime you're doing any kind of individual plan with a student, you should always think about evacuations as well. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you real quick the bests, right? So you're in a child seat like this, hit the button. Simple stuff, right? Piece of cake for somebody that has good fingers, not me, and you're out, no problem. The child can do that themselves most of the time, and they'll have it done before you even get back there. Now, the vest, right, goes with the child. Sorry, man, I tell you what. It goes with the child. So think about this. They've stepped through this. It's even bigger because the legs go through there. We've got one somewhere that's big enough for an adult. I was gonna ask for volunteers, but I didn't bring them.
I got one in there, yeah,
I have one in there.
Do you? So, they step through, right? And that is mandatory on everything except for, I think, the extra large doesn't have the cross strap, I don't think. But anyway, they step through them, and then they're zipped up the back. You think that's gonna be easy to evacuate out of? How do you wanna evacuate them?
You take them
This is the
down.
one time which I'm gonna say seatbelt cutters are amazing.
Yeah.
So,
Point.
the cam wrap's very similar to what these are, so I'm not gonna put it on the seat, but we're gonna come up and look at all this stuff too, but before you guys leave. So you look at this seat back, and think about a vest being on the front of it instead of the seats, right? Where do you cut this to get it evacuated as quickly as possible?
Below the buckle.
Ding, 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 below the buckle. You know why? Because it's got to go through that seat bite. And you're not going to take the time to take that seat up. You can't, students in it.
Yeah.
Right? So below the buckle